Hey everyone, Techstrong and AI are taking over RSAC. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hello everyone. If you can't tell, we're not in our usual Boca Raton studio. We're here at the Moscone Center West on Broadcast Alley, bringing you Techstrong Gang from RSAC Conference. Happy to be joined by two of our regular gang members. Our West Coast people are finally here in person with us, coming down from the Golden Gate Bridge atop its perch, high atop the Golden Gate Bridge.
Always.
Our Tsar, the Tsar of Silicon Valley, Jon Swartz. Jon,
Hi,
it's great to
welcome
have you.
to San Francisco, where Lisa and I live. Not together, but we live in the Bay Area. Sorry about that. A lot of history in this Moscone Center. I was going to tell you, I used to work on this street for 5 years. I worked at a place called Mac Week. And there are a lot of history. There's the iPhone announcement that was here with Steve Jobs in 2007. We had the Democratic National Convention in 1984 with the famous Mario Cuomo speech. Originally, that facility was supposed to be a hockey arena.
Really?
The idea was to build an arena for the basketball and hockey professional teams by a guy named Mill Swig. It never happened, and instead they built Moscone Center with, I don't want to say mixed results. It's a very interesting, somewhat flawed facility, but it's also a lot steeped in history.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I remember that Cuomo speech. That was in response to the city on the hill.
Exactly. It was his rejoinder to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Interesting times. Of course, Lisa, you're much too young to remember that.
A little bit.
But joining us also, part of our San Francisco, West Coast, Silicon Valley gang members, and she's here all week doing interviews with us, Lisa Martin. Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Great to be with you guys in person.
Yes, you don't get it. We don't get a chance to
We
get you
don't.
in person much.
We don't. You guys are both taller than you are on StreamYard.
Probably a little, I would imagine.
I don't think I am.
Well, you look pretty tall. Anyway, so guys, look, it's a gangbusters RSA. We did our DevSecOps event yesterday. Amazing day. We had some amazing leaders speaking. It was great. If you can't tell, I have a cold and my voice isn't what it usually is, but we're going to power through this. AI seems to rule the day here. No different than when we're back in the studio. Right. Our first story, I guess, comes out of a story that you and Mike covered.
Well, Mike covered it, but we both were briefed on it by Cisco. Cisco, basically, I'm going to do a little cheat notes here for a second, but Mike wrote the story. It's in Security Boulevard. Cisco is making available an open source Gen AI reasoning model to automate cybersecurity analytics and workflows. They also announced a set of controls for securing AI artifacts in software supply chains. So that was their news. It's interesting. They're also further integrating the Splunk platform for analyzing IT telemetry data that it acquired last year with the XDR. So it's funny because at the same time this news is being announced, I'm getting flooded with data, surveys, polling that's showing this incredible two things: FOMO and the urgency from the top to get up to speed as fast as humanly possible, which is contradicted by this almost paralytic fear or terror of screwing it up.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of polling results. SNCC just came out with one today, basically showing 80% of the IT managers within these companies are convinced something is going to happen, and they're really concerned about it. But they're kind of wading their way into it. So I think, in a sense, what Cisco is trying to do, and we're going to talk about the Palo Alto networks and others are trying to do, is assuage their customers and ensure them that they're not rushing headlong into oblivion or some sort of security disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope.
They are rushing headlong
They are.
into it. Though.
It's like,
Everybody is. This
yeah, they
massive
are.
No,
acceleration.
you know what? This so much reminds me of 2006. In 2006, had a lot of friends starting companies. They were looking for funding. And the first question every VC asked, or the first question every journalist asked when they met with a new company is, what's your cloud story? What's your cloud story? Right? How do you play in the cloud? What are you doing with the cloud? Now, this might be that on steroids,
I think it is.
right? What's your AI story? Palo Alto, you're one of the biggest, well, interestingly, Palo Alto is not on that show floor, or they don't have
Well,
a
they're
big
going to have
presence.
so later today. I'm going to go over to their press event. They blocked out like 2.5 hours, which is an ungodly amount of time for a press event. But they're going to announce an AI security platform, which we'll talk about in Block B. They're going to talk about an acquisition. They're going to do a lot of things, but they chose, I don't know why, but their executives will be at this event. They're going to have it at the Metreon, which is
No, I will
Block
tell
B.
you why.
Tell me why.
They didn't want to spend the money to do a big RSA event. A lot of the bigger companies, I've seen this. It started with my friend Philippe Courteau at Qualys about 10 years ago. Of course, Philippe passed away. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately. But Qualys gave up their booth space here
Interesting.
and instead used to hold court at either the St. Regis or another hotel on Union Square. A lot of the bigger companies, to get the kind of presence that they want, it's prohibitive to do it on the show floor here, which is,
You just get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
are
you do.
rows of
so
boxes.
they move their stuff off prep.
Microsoft and GitHub, I believe, are going to have a event down at the Palace.
Yeah, well, Microsoft has a huge
So they have
on
a
the
booth.
floor.
Okay.
What you'll also see, and I don't know if we could see it, but if you look out here, what used to be Jillian's
Yeah.
is the CrowdStrike Falcon roost or whatever.
Yeah.
Next to it is another one over here. I forgot the name. All of these, they've taken over every space around.
So this is kind of weird. So South by Southwest did the same thing, right?
Yes.
There's the big convention center, but I remember even 10 years ago, they would rent out. When I was at USA Today, we rented out a restaurant, and we had just our customers come there, and the reporters would report from there. Red Herring would do this traditionally at South by Southwest. There was CNN had their bar and grill.
Yep.
And I think the
Event within
same
an event.
phenomenon is happening where
Yeah.
you kind of capture the brand as you
Pop-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pop-ups.
pop-ups.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a huge,
Well, they get away from the noise.
yeah.
There's so
Well,
much
trying
noise
to
here.
just have their own noise.
Yeah. But you bring
A
up a great
quiet
point.
noise.
Yesterday, I talked with a lot of great security companies, and you bring up a great point about this paralytic fear, but also the acceleration. That there's FOMO. We have to get on board here. We have to have an AI story, but AI is making the cyber landscape even more amorphous
Yeah.
and hard to control. But we had a lot of great conversations yesterday about how these contrast security, intro security was on, and Internet was here talking about secure storage. 90% of your enterprise data is in your storage solution, so you need to be able to secure that rather than having all the doors open. But folks are definitely in that urgency mode, fear of missing out, but also concern of what risks does this AI opportunity also present.
So maybe this is the conference that tries to temper the fears and the anxiety of the
Oh, no.
enterprises.
That's
Do you
not
think,
security.
No?
you think it's just
We
going to
live on FUD. What are you kidding?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they're gonna
They're going to tell them everything that can go wrong.
right.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Yeah.
raise it to a level. I think what it is though is every company wants to be perceived as being aware of the risk, on top of trying to manage
Yeah.
it, and harnessing the power of AI to make their solutions better in this day and age. And when you get a company like Cisco that's talking about releasing open source, pigs fly, right? Cisco's releasing open source software because they're afraid, and this is my personal opinion, I don't know for sure, they're afraid they don't have the mojo to do this AI thing themselves.
Really?
And by putting it out in the open source community, they're looking to gather allies and support to get this thing ready for
Moving.
prime time.
Yeah.
Do you think they represent a number of other companies, probably like their size or their tradition or their reputation, who are going to do the same thing? They're going to follow the same type
Well,
of strategy.
here's the deal. I got to get an AI solution out there. My shareholders, the press, everyone's clamoring.
Right.
What's your AI story? What's your AI story? How can I get an AI solution out to market fast? The fastest.
Yes.
Open source it.
Right.
Crowdsource it. Get the community, especially in this era of foundational open source, where we could do co-opetition.
Yes.
You know, when I think about Cisco's a classic example of a company that probably needs to do that because, in a sense, they've gone through layoffs. They've kind of been they're all long and established, venerable. It's hard for them to pivot. They're too
They
big.
don't
They're too big.
innovate.
Yes.
It's hard to innovate. I mean, I won't go down the path with Apple. That's another story, or Intel. But I think it's the same type of situation where, Microsoft got ahead of the curve
With OpenAI.
with OpenAI. So these companies, in a sense, they're adapting at their own speed, and their speed sometimes is a little bit slower than others because they're bigger.
Yeah.
Well, but this is the way of the world, grasshopper, right? In security. There's little fish, medium fish, and big fish. Little fish innovate.
Yeah.
Medium fish eat the big fish and kind of innovate from that. Big fish eat the medium fish,
And
and
that's
they don't innovate usually.
No.
They just
acquire,
assimilate.
acquihire.
They
Exactly.
assimilate.
Well, that's what ServiceNow's done a lot of that. I can't keep track of the number of acquisitions
Yeah.
they've done.
I know.
Cisco is that's their history.
Specifically in security, and I'm talking go back to the days of Symantec and
Yeah.
McAfee
Yeah.
and Cisco and all of them. They bought their innovation.
Yeah.
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 And that, as someone who's been an entrepreneur in security for 25, 30 years now, that was always the promise. It was a pipe dream to think you were going to have an IPO. I mean, that's 1%.
Right.
But a really good chance that you would get bought up by,
Yeah.
one of the bigger fish
Yeah.
for your IP or your talent.
Or your exit strategy is to be.
That was
I mean,
your exit
And
strategy.
this might be this show, and Monday was an example of, and we'll talk about it later. Palo Alto Networks
Yeah.
acquiring Protect.
But
Data.
that's typical.
Yeah.
Typical.
We might see an acceleration of it actually, given the.
Well, my sources in the valley
Yes, I heard.
tell me that we're going to see a similar acquisition to the Palo Alto acquisition this week.
This week.
announced.
Wow.
Stay tuned.
That's
Yes,
good.
stay
Nice,
tuned.
good.
But you bring up a great point about the innovation. Now, the only thing that concerns me is like companies like Cisco that are, and the ServiceNows that are just constantly acquiring. Are they doing a good job of integrating the technologies so
you
that
know
the
what they say
customers'
about that?
benefits?
You got to break a couple of eggs to make an omelet.
That is true.
So what happens with these acquisitions is, probably 10% of them fail. Fail. Not that the acquisition doesn't take place, but the technology never makes its way. It turns out the technology is either too frail
Okay.
or just not real, frankly. And it doesn't make its way in. The founders take their money and leave.
Yeah.
The key brains get hired somewhere else. This is the way of Silicon Valley and
True.
the security world. So probably 20 to 25% of acquisitions, they're broken eggs in the omelet factory.
Okay.
And yet, I think we're going to probably see more acquisitions because the IPO pipeline isn't really panning
Absolutely.
out.
Great point.
And the IPO that everyone wants to happen or is hoping it would happen would be eventually OpenAI. But they're going to have a problem making a transition to for-profit. There's so much opposition, and the AGs have to sign off. The AG in California has to sign off on that for it to happen, for them to go to for-profit status.
Not only that, the problem I think you're going to have is at what valuation,
Right.
right? At their present raises,
They're at 300 billion market
you're
value.
going to have
IBM,
you're
they're
gonna-
valued more than IBM at this point.
Wow.
You're going to have an IPO for $1 trillion company,
Yeah.
because that's what it's going to take for people later money in to make some, their normal return here.
Yeah, you're already seeing a bunch of lawsuits, not just Musk, but there was a letter that was sent from former employees and Jeffrey Hinton in opposition to what OpenAI wants to do. So I mean, you've got
Well,
that plus just the market reality of something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's a high valuation.
Yeah.
We had the CISO of OpenAI at our event yesterday, as well as the CISO of Anthropic. It was interesting speaking to both of them and
Yeah.
hearing them talk about how important security is.
Interesting. Well, Anthropic, I
I'm a CISO.
understand. Yeah. Oh,
Both the same.
yeah.
The pressure to get out new models.
The pressure, yes.
They got to release new models.
OpenAI just introduced the lightweight, right?
4.0s, yeah.
4.0s, yes. Free, but limited.
No,
use.
but the pressure to get them out
Yeah.
makes it very hard to get security in.
Ah.
I think that's what terrifies the companies, the speed of which these models are coming out. It's like,
Yeah.
wait a second. Plus the benchmarks, they're not what they appear to be, right? They are.
Yeah, but they're in this benchmark race. Claude's benchmark is higher than this one's, and that's Gemini is better than that, and these Chinese ones, and so that creates this wacky races.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
the benchmark tests themselves are being questioned by third parties. They're saying, wait, this score that you were assigned, that's not what we found. So anyway, in a sense, it's buyer beware, but buyer has to buy.
It's all part of the gold rush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all part of.
But
the
you're right
gold
about the
rush.
pressure. It's absolutely there. We
pressure
were
is
talking about it
intense.
yesterday with
Yeah.
there's
But
just so much software being developed they can't keep up from a security perspective. And that's the challenge.
But the pressure is also on the Ciscos and the Palo Altos to
Yes.
say, what's your AI story?
What's your story?
What's your AI
Yes.
story?
You must have one.
And that's what we're dealing with. Hey, let's take a break. We're going to continue this trend of what's your AI story. Got an article John wrote yesterday. You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hey, we're back here live. Well, we're not live. This is recorded, but I am alive at RSA Conference. I've been coming to RSA Conference since 2002. It's two things you could always count on at RSA. Number one, people are going to put out their security reports, whether it's breach data or vulnerability data or whatever. They save their reports for RSA, so this way we could talk about 75 different security reports at the same time. Impossible to do. Secondly, acquisitions. M&A activity peaks at RSA Conference every year. Actually, from RSA to Black Hat, this 3-month window. You'll see all kinds of acquisitions. The acquisition train started off yesterday with an article, John, you were on.
Yes, so Palo Alto Networks kept me very busy the last few days because they kept burying me in news announcements. So they were announcing some updates to two of their main product lines. They were also announcing an AI security platform that we could talk a little bit about. But the big news, they buried the lead, as we say in journalism. They dropped this announcement they're going to buy Protect AI. I don't know the value of the deal, but I think it's rumored around $700 million. Pretty significant.
Yeah.
So in a sense, this acquisition plays into the AI security platform that Palo Alto Networks announced. It's interesting. There's the chief product officer, and again, I want to be sure that I get what he says right. Lee Klarich, we're going to talk to later today. He said AI agents and apps are transforming the way we work, blah, blah, blah. The attack surface isn't just expanding, it's fundamentally changing. The thing that most companies need is more point products to secure their use of AI, and they want to use best-in-class security, which means they're going to buy companies that specialize in things that Palo Alto Networks maybe isn't especially adept at. And they want to deliver this right architecture, and he uses a word, platformization is that architecture. So in a long-winded way, they made their their big play. In a sense, I think what they're doing, and this has been going on for several weeks now, and I think Atlassian, even NVIDIA, they understand the anxiety that's out there. So they don't want to be a Switzerland. I'll put the words in their mouth, but they want to be like a neutral site to help everybody, given this AI agent avalanche.
Yes.
I think JP talked about this last week. We counted 25 AI agent platforms that have been announced in recent months. So if you're within an enterprise, you're thinking, what am I going to do? Like, what do I use? One source? Do I piece it together? And are they compatible? What do? I need someone to kind of glue it together and to secure it. And I think that's kind of the play that Palo Alto Networks made. They're going to have a press conference later today, and they're going to go into it deeper. But it's a wise move, and they got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
It's an important news, but as Alan said too, they are not going to be the last company, probably this week or next, that's going to make some sort of acquisition. And I think we might see, as you mentioned, and that's a very good point, between now and Black Hat in August, that's acquisition season in security. Yeah.
Always has been. A couple things, John, to your points here. Number one, in today's inflated AI market, 700 million is a mere bag of shells.
Yeah.
It's really not a lot of money, though it's crazy money when you look at revenue, as a multiple. This is insane.
Yeah.
But, one man's folly is another man's fortune, and maybe 700 million winds up being a bargain at some point. Secondly, though, Palo Alto was playing the big boys game in security. And I had Daniel Newman here yesterday, and Daniel and I spoke a little bit about this. And to him, it was like a eureka thing. To me, it was, being a security person, this is what they do. And when you look at the security landscape, you have very small companies who make products. I mentioned it in the last segment: small fish, medium fish, big fish, red fish, blue fish. Small companies make products. Medium companies take those products and turn them into features. Big companies take those products and features and build them into a platform.
Yes.
That's
Palo Alto is playing the platform game, right? Because that's the pinnacle. When you're a platform, everything else plugs in.
Yeah.
Whether it's APIs or, marketplaces or however else you want to plug into this platform, including assimilation, by the Borg. That's the game the big boys play.
Yeah.
This is a big boy 101 play.
Textbook case.
Textbook.
Yeah.
Do you suppose? I mean, so you talked about the cloud era earlier.
Yeah.
So we always consistently hear the same message that what's happening with AI is a combination of everything that happened before it, except it's bigger than everything that happened before it. So I'm wondering, given what happened with Palo Alto Networks, does the acquisition narrative follow that same pattern where there's more acquisitions than before because there are more startups than before?
That's a great point.
I mean, there are more people gold rushing.
So yesterday they had the Innovation Sandbox here.
Oh, sure, yeah.
10 finalists. This year, each of the finalists got $5 million.
Wow.
Whether they won or not. You're all winners, right? $5 million for you, $5 million for you. They did an Oprah. I think out of the 10, 8 of them or 9 of them were AI-related companies.
80 to 90%.
So you're going to see a plethora of these AI companies.
Yeah.
90% of them, their exit strategy is acquisition, being acquired.
Yeah.
Fitting into a platform or becoming a feature in someone's product that then goes into a platform. This is how security's always been. It's nothing new.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Symantec. I remember Gordon Eubanks. Remember him? He was the CEO. Same thing that McAfee did. It just gave me kind of this flashback. They would just acquire companies every other week.
What's the story for customers, though? Because customers want simplicity. In this age of security and AI and this amorphous spreading of the threat landscape, what's Palo's message to its customers?
We are your source for AI.
We are your source for
We
AI.
are
We are your
It's a clean story.
platform. We are your platform. for
Come shopping
secure.
through us, right? If you need this, we specialize
We're
in
your
all
Amazon.
this.
Yeah, for AI.
And speaking of it, so I used to work, I worked downtown San Francisco for about 30 years. And one of the things, and this is, we hear so many stories about San Francisco and like what it's gone through, right? Just living here post-COVID. The AI environment, and in terms of just like these little small companies that exist out of apartments or homes or little small rental facilities, has really, like, in a sense, and RSA in particular has rejuvenated the city in the last year. And so I think you're right. This gold rush thing is kind of escalating to the point where there's so many opportunities for extreme specialization that they're discovering across vertical markets, not just in general use.
Right.
I'm thinking like healthcare, construction, manufacturing.
No,
police
AI is
surveillance,
applicable to
police
all of
surveillance
these
that
things.
we keep talking about, good and bad.
Yeah.
The ride up here yesterday from San Jose, up 101, the billboards for AI with all of these smaller companies trying to get a clear, concise message out why we're your shop for AI. I lost count.
That used to be it on
Let
101.
me ask you a question, though. Are those billboards aimed at consumers, or are they trying to get Palo Alto or someone else's
I think
attention?
it's the latter. Yes.
Yeah.
That I didn't feel a consumer message.
So during the internet boom, if you drove on 101, I used to do that every day to go to work. The billboards were everywhere, and then they stopped for a while. Now they've returned,
no,
and it is overkill. I mean, it gets lost in the noise.
Mebius
but
must have had like
but
10.
they don't care about what we, the commuters, think.
No.
They're
They
aiming for
know who their
Absolutely.
audience is.
Yeah.
They know who their target audience is.
If the VCs see it.
Right.
And look, more power to them.
Oh.
There will be a lot of winners. There'll be a lot of losers. There'll be a lot of these AI companies that wind up not getting the $700 million exit.
Yeah.
My friend Brad Feld always said, if you're not in the top three,
Your
get out.
history. Yeah.
And, because the top three get the multiples. So,
So I'm going to issue a mea culpa too, because we talked. I mean, off and on, we've talked about things like Apple and AI, and I've always kind of take a dig at them because I think their days of innovation are kind of over. But there was a survey that came out. I actually wrote about this. I wanted to just bring this up. A survey came out that 80% of the people out there are willing to wait for what Apple does, and they're willing to pay at least $10 a
true.
month. Whatever they come out with. Most of them actually were willing to pay like $20 a month.
Yeah.
And I think about like the people who are going to be eventually the winners, even though they're a little bit late to the market, which they always are.
They always
by
are.
by design.
Their MO.
This time I don't know if it's by design. I think it's by misstep as well.
Could be.
We talk about the winners. I always want to wonder who you think are going to be eventually the polls positions in AI, because there are more than 3 or 5 major companies that are kind of trying to assist.
if you look at every technical innovation plateau that we've hit,
Yeah.
the start of the internet, e-commerce,
Yep.
cloud, AI now. It's the same old companies. There's usually always one or two that come in, from each of these new innovation things. So who's going to be the winners? Well, IBM's been a winner for 100 and something years.
Yeah.
They'll be a winner. They'll be here. Apple, Google, Meta, they'll
Microsoft.
all be here. Microsoft, they'll be here. Maybe OpenAI is the AI darling. If I was a betting man, Anthropic will become part of a platform.
Yes.
Maybe Amazon.
Yes. I've heard that rumor.
I have too.
Well, they've
Yeah.
invested a ton of money,
Yes.
There's a ton
They
of
have.
money.
Yes.
but so's Google for that matter.
Hey, so you mentioned at RSA, it's not to kind of assure us, but maybe to tell us what could possibly go wrong. So I talked yesterday with the SNCC CTO. His name is Danny Allen, who's
You
here.
know, I interviewed Danny.
Danny,
I know
right?
Danny.
He's a hockey player.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, cool. So, but he said he was almost, I'm going to quote him, almost certainly within 12 months, if things continue at this pace, like the crazy pace things are, we're going to see a major security breach involving AI, particularly things around the area of sales.
Really? Sales.
Because I always, so that's my fear. I mean, I'm not hoping this happens, but I think it's an eventuality. It's inevitable that there will be some sort of like CrowdStrike-like events. And that's what keeps companies a little bit hesitant to go all in because they're afraid they are going to be the company, like a Delta that goes
Nobody
through this.
wants to be the next headline.
Right. I mean, it will come and go, but they just don't want to accept the responsibility, even though they want all the riches at the same time.
Well, the amount of data that sales has and marketing, I think they're huge opportunities for attackers that the sales folks, the marketing folks need to look at all this customer data and how do we make sure it's secure?
They don't care.
You don't think they care? I want to believe they care.
I'll
It's
tell
like
you
the
what.
meta approach is broken.
There's two aspects of a security incident. You're talking about a breach where they stole all my sales and marketing data.
Yeah.
BFD. BFD. I don't care. As long as I still have it and use it, because I could sell better than them or, whatever. The bigger fear is sort of like a ransomware or a CrowdStrike thing where I can't get to my sales and marketing data.
Right.
Then all of a sudden the wheels grind to a halt.
I see your point. Yep.
That they worry about.
That, yes.
But someone breaking in and stealing my AI data.
Yeah.
BFD.
I'm thinking like a system-wide failure.
Right.
Yeah.
Although the ransomware thing like has legs. I mean, you just constantly hear
totally.
about these companies just willing to pay.
Of course they would.
Yeah, just keep
If
it.
your sales and marketing shut down, you'd pay.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're about ready for our next gang topic. We're going to take a break. We are here at RSA, Moscone West. If you're watching this tomorrow, we'll be here tomorrow too. Come on in. That's Wednesdays tomorrow. Today. Tomorrow is today when you're doing the gang. We'll be back in a minute.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Welcome back to Techstrong Gang. We're in San Francisco at RSA Conference in Moscone Center. And Block C, Minimus, launched a managed service, which Alan knows a lot about. So I'm going to throw it to Alan, but just again, this is like the Super Bowl. I don't know, maybe we should ask you first. How do you, we've done this before. How do you compare what goes on here to Black Hat? Are they two pretty similar shows now? It seems like they've kind of morphed into one another.
So I've been coming to RSA since 2002, coming to Black Hat since 2003. Though I don't go, honestly, I stopped going to Black Hat from 2010 or 11 through maybe 15, 16. I just didn't feel like going out to Las Vegas.
In August,
summer.
110 degree weather.
Yep.
There was a time when Black Hat was at Caesar's Palace.
I remember that.
DEF CON was at the Rio.
Ugh.
And, I was running Still Secure. Mitchell, my friend Raja Bhargava was the CEO. And we were exhibitors at Black Hat. It was exciting.
Yeah.
What made Black Hat different than RSA was Black Hat was about security research. Barnaby Jack getting up there and making the ATM rain money. Hacking pacemakers.
I was terrified of using a cell phone there.
Really?
I wouldn't.
I was hacked in 2005 there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
iPhone, I think it was the iPhone 3 in 2005. Had a very bad thing. By default, it would if it was an SSID, it recognized it would
Yeah.
go on to it. I didn't know. It fucking went. Excuse my language.
But you had that
Bring me back.
bulletin board of shame too.
Yeah,
where
the
you
wall
get
of sheep.
outed.
That was the wall
Really?
of the
Wall
wall
of
of
shame.
sheep. The wall of sheep.
Of sheep. Oh, that's right. Good memory. Yeah. I may have made it.
My iPhone 3 attached to an SSID that it had seen before, but it was the decoy, and I got hacked. Didn't realize it till I got home that Saturday morning. I was coaching my little Bradley was 4 or 5 years old. 2005, he was 4 years old, 5 years old. And some of the mothers from the team called me that they had received some unusual emails from me with some very interesting pictures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Then I realized I was locked out of my blog, my mail, my domains, everything.
Wow.
And it was interesting. Yeah, it took me. Thank God I had good friends back then I was able to get retake my domains, retake my
Okay,
Google and
yeah.
Yahoo and everything.
But how long did that take you?
A day or two, only because I was calling the head of security at
Because you
that
have
time
connections.
and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
actually, I'll never forget this. A good friend, Robert Hansen, R-Snake, very famous security dude.
Yes.
Robert found out who it was. The guy's in jail right now for anti-Semitic troping and all kinds of shit, and he should rot there. But Robert helped me a lot. My friend Jeremiah Grossman, a lady she was at Microsoft at the time. I don't know if you know Katie Masuris. She started the whole bug bounty program in security. Katie helped me. I had a lot of, I've been in this community a long time.
That was an advantage.
And I had a lot of friends.
I was terrified of it back then because I remember
you had
I
to
would
be.
go back there with one of our guy, Byron
You had to-
Akihito.
I remember
we
Byron.
were doing research for this book.
Yeah.
And the community knew of that what we were up to, and we were.
You're better off just leaving
We
your phone
did, yes.
shut off in your room.
So we did, yeah.
But that's what Black Hat used to be.
Okay.
Okay. It's not anymore though.
What has it evolved into?
When they moved into Mandalay Bay, and it got very corporate, Jeff, what's his name, sold it. Jeff Moss sold it.
Oh, okay.
It's part of Informa now. I'm not knocking Informa, though they deserve it. They don't let enough press people into Black Hat because they like to keep their own press people there.
Okay.
But it became RSA in the desert. It really, you don't see the research like you used
Really?
Not the same.
It's the same as this, except in the desert. And where this has about 45,000 people, I think Black Hat's about 19,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's half the size.
Oh, so what about Minimus and Matt?
Well, let me talk about Minimus.
Mike wrote this story. I think it's
Yeah.
on security. Build
Yes.
probably.
So this is a new story, but an old story. Right? Do you remember when we used to install Windows on floppy disks?
Oh my gosh.
And there was a time where Windows installed on 3 or 4, those 5 1/4 inch, the big ones.
Yeah.
Then they went to the 3.5 hard floppies. And it went from 5 of those to 10 of those to all day feeding them in and we used to call bloatware. Bloatware, right? Our OS was full of bloatware. All those applications Microsoft installed that we never used. It's the same thing in Linux distros. All the packages, though in Linux you have more of a choice of what packages you want to install. Mac has it too. They all do. It extends to the platforms that the Palo Altos and everyone come out with. So we've always been on a quest of all of that bloatware represents security exposure,
Absolutely.
right? It's your exposure, like your skin. It's more exposure. There's a word and I'm not thinking of it right now. But so you want to reduce your exposure. You want to reduce your profile. And so we've all tried, or not in the security industry, we've tried to boil down, get rid of the fat, get rid of the bloatware,
Yeah.
get rid of unnecessary code so that my security profile, my attack surface, that's the word I'm thinking.
Attack surface.
Attack surface. How do I shrink my
Yes.
attack surface?
Yes.
Minimus is shrinking attack surface. They're taking your apps hosted and have taken out the bloat, taken out the unnecessary, and shrunk your attack surface. Of course, the issue is did they take out anything I may want to use? Just because 80% of the people don't use this particular feature, it may be important to me.
Right.
You know, when I was talking to, I think it was a PR person yesterday about Minimus. They wanted to bring him by. We may have him on our coverage here this week. When I was at SUSECon last month, they're doing a very similar thing. SUSE is taking all of your most common Linux packages. They're hosting them, just like Minimus is hosting them. And they're taking out all of the bloat, all of the security, making sure they're updated. And now you can get your Linux packages to you get your distro that has the basics. But as you want more packages, you can download the SUSE version of them, which are stripped down, bloatware out, hardened, and supposedly just a better choice. Very similar to Minimus. Now, when you're SUSE and you have a distro of Linux, that makes a great platform play, right? You're using my platform, and here are the apps you want to use on my platform that I'm blessing. They're hardened, they're stripped down, they're skinny. When you're Minimus, my question is, there's 1 trillion apps out here.
Yeah.
How many of them are you going to host?
Exactly.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, look, there's a subset of apps that 80% of us use. And if they just focus on them, there's a business there.
That was a question that I had from your conversations about Minimus. I love the name, by the way, Minimus, minimizing that attack surface. But also, with the app explosion, it's not going to slow down.
No.
That's the thing.
That's
All this
the problem.
acceleration, right? So how do they get?
I mean, think about it. If I'm an app developer and I say, we could get great distribution, can we get this into Minimus, have them minimize it, and put it in their SaaS? How much is Minimus going to charge for that? What's the wait time?
Yeah.
Are they going to strip it down and not lose anything essential? All of the above. I mean, it's an interesting play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know how it scales in terms of how many apps you're putting in there.
The app sprawl. Yeah. Yeah.
But again, it's just like another example of a company that's offering a solution across the board. It's kind of platform neutral. I mean, it's
Yeah, well, you would
it's
think
practical,
so.
I guess.
You think
In
so.
theory.
you think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
We'll see.
again, who knows?
Yep. Well, there will be a lot of companies launched here, a lot of companies coming out of stealth. As a matter of fact, I mentioned Innovation Sandbox.
Yes.
Another part, excuse me, another part of the RSAC innovation program is Innovation Launchpad,
Okay, innovation.
which are companies coming out of stealth. We're recording this Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, 3:30 over at the YBAC. They will be announcing the winners of the Innovation Launchpad companies coming
Okay.
out of stealth.
Okay.
I don't think there's money attached to it like there is Sandbox, but nevertheless, it's a great start if you're a young company.
Oh, awesome.
Exciting.
Awesome.
Very
Good stuff.
exciting. Yeah.
All right. Hey, what do you say we wrap up?
Yeah.
All right.
Good idea.
John, Lisa, thank you
Thank you.
Thanks
for
having
coming
us.
in person.
Great to be here
It's
in
great
person.
to be here. Sorry about my voice. I hope you've enjoyed this Techstrong gang. We will be doing this again tomorrow and again on Thursday, so stay tuned for that. But until then, this is a slightly hoarse Alan Schimmel at RSA Conference. Stay with us, everyone.